Shift, everybody. We're so pumped that you decided to join us, whether it's in person or online. If you're new with us, you can scan this QR code or the one at the welcome table. If you fill out the Connect card, we'll send you some free Opus coffee because it's pretty amazing and we are a pretty amazing church. We only have 2 more Sundays left in 2022, and next week we want you to wear your ugliest, most obnoxious Christmas sweater and participate in our annual awkward Christmas photos. We're gonna have the Shift backdrop all decorated, tacky of course, for you and your friends or family to pose for selfies. There's no prizes for the ugliest sweater or anything, unless you consider being a part of the Awesomest Church a prize. The final Sunday of the year is a day of rest for all of our volunteers and staff. We want you guys to enjoy Christmas morning without having to worry about who's doing what for a service. The following Sunday, January 1st, is gonna be an online only service because New Year's is Saturday and, you know, we got you covered. That's all I have for you today, but make sure you keep an eye on all of our social media pages as we head into the new year. Now it's time for week 2 of Travel Light.
About 10 years ago, it's going to be 10 years this upcoming February next year. My family and I, we moved down to Florida from the Midwest, from Missouri, and it was honestly one of the hardest things we've ever done. We weren't trying to get away from our family. We weren't trying to get out of Missouri. It was just kind of how things played out. We agonized over that decision for months, and we were actually looking at several different churches, and we flew down here. And the church that we're interviewing with, they flew us down here in December, which I think was strategic because it was gorgeous. I mean, we went from the Midwest of like snow and 0 degrees and wind chill and all that stuff, and then we came down here and we're in, maybe a light jacket and eating breakfast outside, and it was honestly gorgeous. And so then we accepted the position and moved down here in February. And that first year of being away from everybody was so incredibly difficult. I don't know if you've ever been away, if you've moved away from all of your friends and family, but that first year for us was definitely the hardest. I mean, homesickness was constant every day. And I can remember one time during that first year, my parents came down to visit, and they kept the kids and got us a gift card to like Olive Garden, I think it was. And we were sitting there talking, and it was so good to see family and stuff, just a familiar face. And we're sitting there over like soup, salad, and breadsticks, right? It's Olive Garden. And we start talking about everything that's going on, and we both just start crying at this table over our breadsticks and stuff. And it was just like, God better save this entire stinking city for everything that we're giving up here. And we didn't want to leave Missouri. It just how it worked out. The church that I'd been a part of kind of ran us off. And so when we got down here, like there was all of this, we had some bitterness and some disappointment and some anger all rolled up into it. And then you add in all the other stuff, and it was just this big ball of emotions. And I'll be really honest. I'm very thankful that we're able to talk about stuff like this during this time of year, because I think us talking about this is really important, because you've probably noticed that the holidays, Christmas time, Thanksgiving, New Year's, tend to magnify emotions. That when things are good, right, Christmas makes those things even better. But when there's like family tensions, or there's relational hurts, or there's disappointments, then Christmas tends to magnify those things too. And so what happens is those hard and lonely times or broken times often seem more painful. And so I want to welcome everybody to Shift. Sorry about yesterday. We had a little SD card go corrupt on us, and so we got it all taken care of. So we wanted to re-record this and put this out there with our Travel Light series. And so this is week 2. Last week we took a look at letting go of distractions. And we talked about saying no to so many good things so that we could say yes to the best things. And we do that by setting our boundaries, right? And sticking to our boundaries and understanding that not everybody is going to understand what that means, and they're going to push back on those, and to not feel bad when we hold to those boundaries. And then we focus on those things that God is calling us to, even when nobody understands it. Next week, we're going to be taking a look at letting go of our past, and today we're looking at that idea of bitterness. Now, when you stop and think about it in the next couple of weeks, many of us are going to have like this sacred opportunity to share love with some of the most important people in our lives. And you can be sure that whether you are here in person or you're watching this online, that this season will also, for some of us, uncover or plant these little seeds of bitterness that start to grow. And so before we move forward, I want you to hear me say this. Like, this is the one sentence that everything else hangs on, is this: that you can't control what people do, but you can control how you respond. In the early church letter called Hebrews, the author, it's an anonymous author. I think it's a particular person, but it doesn't matter. In Hebrews, it says this, Hebrews 12:14 through 15. It says, "Work at living in peace with everyone, and work at living a holy life, for those who are not holy will not see the Lord." Now, just a quick side note, that idea of holy, when we hear that, we think of like Mother Teresa, Gandhi, somebody that's just like otherworldly, right? But the idea of holy is just being separated. It's if we were to bring that wisdom to today for us, it's that idea of living that narrow road life, right? Treating others as we want to be treated, kind of living separately from how the culture treats each other. Goes on, verse 15. "Look after each other so that none of you fails to receive the grace of God. Watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many." Now, I'm not a farmer. I do not enjoy working in the yard. I mean, I enjoy in the summer mowing and that kind of stuff, but flowers and plants and all that stuff, that's all my wife. She loves all that stuff. She's got this whole little bird sanctuary in our backyard, and it's got certain flowers that attract hummingbirds and all the stuff, and she's got the green thumb. But I do know this, all right, when we're talking about roots, that roots go underground, right? If you didn't know that, now you do. Roots spread and grow as they find nourishment. You cannot see the root system growing because it's underground, but over time, that root system grows strong and it grows deep. And if we're taking a look at this idea of bitterness and the root of bitterness, you may have experienced a hurt or a disappointment or an offense and never even know that thing has taken root in your heart, all right? Our first year here, I got word that another church of the same association, kind of denomination, was also planting in Gainesville. And so I reached out, found out who the pastor was going to be. It was the founding pastor of Shift, Brad Zacharitz, and him and I met, and we talked and hit it off right away. And all of a sudden, this relationship started to grow, this friendship, and a relationship between the two churches, the church that I was at called Harvest and Shift, and we started kind of doing some stuff together. And over that time period, we realized, hey, how awesome would it be if we could do this thing together? And so that's what we tried to do. We tried to lead a merger between the two churches. We actually did it twice. It failed twice. It was a yes until it was like right at the last second a no. It was devastating. And I can remember we had this all-church meeting at Harvest. And if you've ever been a part of the church, all-church meetings are super fun. Anyway, we had this whole thing because we knew Harvest, we had a runway. We had a runway of like 18 months of money. And then the money was out and the doors would close. And so we kind of laid all of the cards on the table and said, this is what we're thinking about doing. And my family and I, we decided that regardless of what they decided, whatever they were going to do, right? Vote yes or no. It didn't matter. We were going to go with Shift. And so we had this huge meeting. Now, this is a good 5 years into us being here in Gainesville, 5 years of being away from family. And we had this huge meeting, and I wasn't leading it. One of the other leaders was, and they were talking about this stuff, and they kind of opened it up. And I'll never forget, one particular person stood up, and they said, we have been without a pastor before and survived. We'll be just fine again. And I can remember my wife and I looking at each other, just dumbfounded, just absolutely dumbfounded that somebody would treat us, our family, just so flippantly, just so uncaring and just dismissive. I was angry. I held my tongue. I was angry. I was a little taken aback. I was really hurt. And we moved halfway across the country to take this little tiny church that wanted to do something, and then they decided to not do that thing. And we felt lied to, we felt betrayed, we felt hurt. And the person that said that, by the way, was the exact same person that showed up on Shift's doorstep a few months ago and telling me that I was going to hell, that I was leading my family to hell, that I was leading all of you watching this to go to hell, that we're all going to hell, 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 hell. And it was a good time. And that I would hear applause from the saints as I received my eternal damnation. That was an awesome day. But after that meeting, we kind of let it slide and just kind of brushed it off, because we had this great next step over at Shift Church. And but what I didn't realize in the emotion, like the excitement of going to this new thing, what I didn't realize was that bitterness snowballed from what we brought down here. Like we had just kind of moved that, just kind of pushed that down. But what was happening at Harvest just kind of added to that. That bitterness of being lied to repeatedly was growing unseen, but it was growing quickly. Now, I'm going to ask a dumb question here. How many of you have ever been to a wedding? Right? Okay, all of us, right? We've all been to a wedding. And I'm going to guess that all of us have heard a particular passage at those weddings. It's 1 Corinthians. Like, you don't even have to be a church person, and you're going to know 1 Corinthians. Love is patient, love is kind, right? Now, if you go through that, one of the things that it says is that love keeps no records of wrongs, right? No records of wrongs. But bitterness keeps detailed records, right? Like, he hurt me, she misled me, he lied to me, she let me down. You know the exact problem, when and where it occurred. Now, the problem with all of that is the longer you let that root live, the more it spreads and the harder it is to kill. So bitterness has this dangerous root, but if you give it time, that root continues to grow and it's going to produce a poisonous fruit, right? Which is why the author of Hebrews says that there. Watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. It's a root that produces a very dangerous, poisonous, bad fruit. And we've all experienced this. Think about it. A bitter person can poison a relationship like that. A bitter person can make a workplace miserable. We've all worked with people like this, and they make the place just horrible to be at. A bitter person can divide an entire family. Now, some of you listening to this, watching this, are probably thinking, at some point in time, you will be thinking, I wish so-and-so was here to hear this, or I need to send this to so-and-so because they need to be listening to this. But before you relax and start pointing fingers at somebody else, I need to remind you that bitterness is one of the most difficult things to recognize in ourselves. When we're looking in the mirror, it's hard to see that. Because when you are bitter, you feel justified in how you feel. Because I'm angry. I'm only angry because of what they did. That's the only reason I feel this way. It's their fault that I feel this way. And if we're not careful, some of us will celebrate this season, right? Celebrate this idea of Christ's love while hating somebody else in our hearts. Right? We will anticipate and receive God's presence during this time of season, but withhold it from those around us. A few years ago, my family and I, my wife and kids, we went back up to Missouri. And when we go to Missouri, if we're able to, we try to spend like a week with my family and a week with her family. And just make a big, to-do of it and see everybody and spend as much time with them as we possibly can. And this one year, I was really struggling with Harvest. We were gone from Harvest, and all of the emotions of that transition, I just kind of like shoved down, right? I didn't want to deal with it. We are moving into a new space. I kind of tried to leave it behind, but what I ended up doing was just kind of pushing those emotions down, and they just kind of continued to grow, and they would pop up at random times. And I was starting to feel like I needed to deal with it, but if I'm really honest, I didn't want to. While we were up in Missouri, one of those particular leaders started texting me and calling me, and I wasn't going to respond. I just kind of like ignored it. And then I was just like, all right, fine, I'm going to have to deal with this. So they texted one more time, and I said, hey, I'm up in Missouri with family. I will holler at you when I get back. And when I got back, I met with a good friend, and we were sitting there talking over lunch. And they told me, you're gonna have to deal with this. If you don't deal with this, you're not going to be able to move past it. You've got to tell them how you feel, and it doesn't matter how they respond. It's about you, right? And so that's what I did. I reached out to two particular leaders of Harvest, and we sat down for lunch. And I just told them how I felt, and I didn't hold back. I wasn't a jerk, but I let them know exactly how I felt about all of it, how it all went down, and what I had been dealing with and what I thought about them. And I let it go. I let it go. I had to. I let it go. It was very difficult. It was a several-year process. I still deal with it. I'm not going to lie. It still pops up every now and then. But I have forgiven them, and I've let it go. I had to, because it was killing me. It didn't matter, like I'm not being mean, I'm not saying this mean. It didn't matter how they responded, but it was killing me. I had to do it for my sake. And here's the thing, they didn't even know how I felt. Like, they were surprised when I came to them and I took the conversation in the direction that I did. They were totally surprised. They had no idea. It was literally those like 2 or 3 years, it was literally like me drinking poison and hoping that it would hurt them, right? Hoping that it would hurt them. They had no clue. So this idea of killing bitterness, how do we do that, right? How do we let go? How do we forgive? Well, in the early church letter